Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Bone Podcast, where we discuss all things crypto markets. That includes the majors like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, meme coins, and of course, NFTs. Today, we're going to discuss the market bounce. We're going to talk about our thoughts on the upcoming Mega ETH and Monad TGEs and how we can play defensively amidst market volatility. Thank you all for listening today. If you're on Twitter Spaces, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a bookmark. If you're feeling generous, give us a retweet, push us out in the algorithm. If you are on YouTube and listening, give us some comments. Let us know what you want to talk about today. Let us know how you're playing the bear market, what you are farming. We've got a couple special guests on the show today. We've got Phunky returning after a couple weeks. He was here helping us out before. We also have first timer on the show of recent note. We have Micahg, Bodoggo community member extraordinaire, software developer, Web3 dev. Micah, welcome to the show. How you feeling today?
Thanks. It's been a long time since the I was looking back. It was like 3 to 4 years or something when I was last here doing like 1 ETH challenges. So yeah, excited to. No, I've been camera doxed. Yeah, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was your first time on camera on the show. I know you used to listen way back in 2021 when you were on more regularly on the spaces when the Bodoggos were doing that. Love to have you on. Excited to hear your takes. Phunky, how you feeling? How's this market been treating you?
Great, man. I no complaints, right? Like I'm sort of the Bitcoiner guy who has most of the portfolio there, so don't mind the volatility, and now doing a lot just with stables, trying to, take a page out of Legendary B-Check's book, just doing a lot of farming and trying to build up points and other protocols, and which I'm sure we're going to get into today. But thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us. I don't have to do a one-man show again like I did yesterday. That was a fun one. Hopefully we avoid doing that more in the future. Before we get started, though, we have a special word from the partner of today's show. Talked about them yesterday. We'll talk about them again today. It is Gemini. I signed up for this credit card yesterday. I closed on my house. I no longer have to worry about my credit score and keeping that absolutely pristine. So we signed up for the Gemini credit card yesterday. Signed up for the Bitcoin card. I got $50 in free Bitcoin. If you go to bodoggos.com/Gemini, you get that as well. Did you know that your credit card points and miles can lose value to inflation while they collect dust? Credit card companies often reduce the redemption value of your points and miles over time. Imagine a credit card with rewards that can grow in value. With the Gemini credit card, you can earn Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptocurrencies instantly with no annual fee. That's my favorite thing about the card. No annual fee. You also get a number of cashback benefits. Right now, for me, it's going to be my main card for gas, 4% back on gas, and then also dining, 3% on dining. And that includes, if you're going out and getting drinks too. So that's going to be my flashing around my orange Bitcoin card at the bar, at the restaurants when me and my wife go out. That's going to be fun. Sign up today, bodoggos.com/Gemini for a $50 Bitcoin bonus. Love Gemini. We continue to love working with them. Love what they're building. And Gemini was even in the news, working on a prediction market. I saw over the last 24 hours. They're joining that game as well. We're going to talk about a number of things today. We're not going to do our standard weather report per se, but I'm just going to kind of just run through a number of like our prices, and then we'll just kind of jump topic to topic and go from there. So first up, let's just take a look at the overall crypto market price board here on CoinMarketCap. Bitcoin just under 103K, basically even on the 24-hour. Ethereum over 3,300. Solana holding 160. Hyperliquid holding $40. Zcash, the big winner of the day, moving up to $541. Wow, that's a new all-time high. It feels like we're pumping into this as an all-time high. I have no exposure to Zcash. I have very little knowledge on what it is and why it's pumping. I watched a little bit of the Morning Minute, FOMO Hour yesterday, and they had Mert on talking about it. Micah, Phunky, either of you guys, are you in this Zcash trade?
I'm not in the trade. I actually just bought some, so I can tell you what's going on with it in general, right? This is just the privacy narrative is becoming huge. So we're seeing a couple developments in the EU, right, where they're talking about a CBDC or a digital euro. And I think this has certainly exacerbated the interest in. So going back to, I think it's like August is when it starts running. Naval, very famous sort of KOL, way beyond the CT space, right? Just a thought leader, if you will, and very important figure in the 21st century. He took an interest in Zcash. And so what Zcash effectively allows you to do is shield your transactions. This is the same, this group that developed Zcash was working on this as an academic project in the mid 2010s. They're the ones that developed zero knowledge. And so what you have the ability to do with Zcash is you can publicly broadcast your transaction just like as you normally would. It is sort of like a fork of Bitcoin. It is proof of work. So it has a lot of the similar characteristics, very limited supply. So a lot of the things that are similar to Bitcoin you have with Zcash. Some OG Bitcoiners are literally diversifying their stack into Zcash because what it does enable you to do is to shield the transaction. So you can effectively keep your transactions private. You don't know what wallet it's being sent to. You don't know the amount that's being sent. It's all just shielded, so you can't see it. And so that's the most interesting metric. Yes, the price chart is up, looks very similar to this, but if you look at shielded transactions on the network, it looks like the price chart because people have all suddenly woken up to the value of true privacy. And so you see this whole narrative going around about how it's the better version of Bitcoin because Bitcoin, of course, is just pseudonymous. You can trace anything on chain. And yes, it might only be an address, but if you do enough digging, sometimes you can find it. But when you look at the shielded transactions, because Mert has been flexing this a lot, right? When you think of Mert as just being a Solana bull, but he's saying this as a narrative, and we're going to see this increase too, because we see it with other networks like the Canton network, which is a big TradFi, play because all of the transactions are only private between the individual validators on the network because they want to ensure that they have that privacy. If they're making big block trades, for instance, you don't want to be front run. So privacy as a narrative is continuing to increase. And so this is why Zcash is so hot. So back at like 300 some bucks, I just like bought a few of them, right? And thought like, okay, I'll just hang on to these things as if, because if it does become the next Bitcoin and the private version of Bitcoin, and this is someday worth 5-6 figures, then I'm not going to quibble over spending a couple grand just to put some on a cold ledger. I actually had Zcash in the prior run and I bought it for like 50 bucks in 2020. I sold it when it peaked around 250 or something like that in April of 21. But now we're getting to the point where like this has exceeded the prior pump from the entire last cycle. And it goes back to where if you look at that first cycle, you'll see when it dropped, it was super valuable. And then it ran up to about $1,000 back in like December of 2017. I think on a wick, it probably hit like $750 or something like that. But, if we get past that area, if we get into 4-figure territory, I think Zcash becomes intensely interesting, long-term as a hold. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell, everything that's been happening with Zcash and just some larger KOLs. My boss is very funny. He thinks like he's very cynical about this whole Zcash thing. He thinks it's totally a coordinated pump to get people out of like big positions. I don't think that's the case. I just think privacy is becoming a really important narrative in today's day and age. And this is being seen as, the privacy coin to hold. And there's a lot of developments that are happening from the team as well to kind of improve the network efficiency. And then now you can swap it between chains, which is becoming a big thing because before it was just sort of seen as a dyno coin that only existed on a proof of work network. But now they're building bridges to other ecosystems and being able to keep the transactions shielded is a big thing. So yeah, it's a hot narrative. And I think as it continues to climb, the narrative is only going to get hotter and it's just going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy in my mind.
So this thing is already pumped quite a bit at this, like it's hot on the top of the Bollinger Bands. I understand the argument for privacy. Did anything like meaningful come out outside of just like macro and like global conditions to cause this drive starting like in September? Like, did I miss like some sort of like event outside of like maybe like you were saying the like CDBC and Euro?
Not as, I think Naval is probably the biggest impact that started the conversation. And now you have large KOLs in the space who are also, whether it's Mert, whether it's Arthur Hayes, you name it, there's just, so yes, I think it's a combination of shilling plus just the love affair, the current meta du jour, if you will, of privacy being really big. And I think this is what's driving so much of it. So that's why I just bought some in the $300 range and just literally threw them on a ledger. I'm like, okay, whatever, we'll see where this goes. I'm happy to hold.
I will say as a slight counterpoint, I have never made money on a chart that looks like this. I've never made money getting into a chart that looks like that. But I agree with the larger point. I think there was some stuff that came out. Decrypt ran an article just based on the European Union, or Europe in general, is looking at some stuff around trying to tax on 1% of cryptocurrency holdings, regardless of whether or not you've cashed them out. So I think there's a legitimate use case for it. I think if you're like me and maybe you're just not that deep into Zcash, I think, and I've done this a lot of times and it's worked out relatively well, is like understand that if that goes way up in price, there's going to be a lot of people that made a lot of money. And then you have to hope that liquidity comes into the things that you own, right? At some point, they're going to want to play fantasy sports. And if I own some fantasy sport things, maybe I'll get some money. But chasing a chart that looks like that is a hard no for me.
Yeah, so what I did is, like, I was looking at this. I'm looking at what happened last run. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see this. Essentially, I looked at last run back in 2021, and I drew fibs just to kind of see like how it was playing on these different retests. We kind of had like a pretty steep pump up from, let me get rid of these Bollinger Bands, clean it up a little bit. We had a pretty steep run from where it was support at 55 billion all the way up to, sorry, 55 million, 272 million here. And we had a retrace down to the 382 on the fibs before hitting all-time high again. I drew similar fibs on this current run up because, like, I mean, obviously, like, these charts that go straight up tend to do this where they they can potentially just completely fall off a cliff. Not saying this will, like, I mean, this narrative could take off and this could just be like fair value for this, but like Mike is saying, I've never made money buying this coin. But what I did is I drew fibs. I picked that same 382 level on where we're running at right now. I'll keep bringing that up as long as we go higher. And then I'll look at like wherever this 382 is as a potential entry once I understand it better, if I do think it can make another run this cycle. So that's like my thought process for entry on Zcash. It is interesting. I do think that like combating some of the surveillance makes a ton of sense. I think people who are buying this like aren't really like the CT speculators who are buying this and talking about this are just buying it because price go up. And at some point there needs to be like that next buyer. And this isn't something that I imagine, like, I could be wrong completely, but like institutions are going to be adopting if there's going to be like potential like government regulation involving Zcash. Like I can't see like a BlackRock having a big position in Zcash if like the US could easily just turn around and say like, hey, you can't hold Zcash as an institution because like we're banning this because of like threat actors, etc. So I'm curious if you've seen that narrative at all, Phunky. I haven't really heard anyone like talk about like the next marginal buyer at some point for this.
No, I haven't. And that's a great point too, right? Because this is going to be the FUD that will be generated around it is, oh, you're just people who are using Zcash are just trying to obfuscate their transactions, right? Like it's money laundering, it's drugs. It's the same thing that we often hear when it comes to the stuff we used to hear in prior cycles about Bitcoin and what it was being used for. And so the fact that you can't see into it, I mean, yeah, I think that that's to your point. With increasing regulatory clarity coming in the US, like no one's going to sanction this. I mean, look at the fact that as positive as all the tailwinds have been in the US for crypto broadly, what's the one thing that they're not into? Privacy, right? You look at Roman Storm, you look at the Tornado Cash thing. He is still like, I mean, they've pardoned CZ for goodness sake, but they still haven't let Roman Storm off the hook. So like, I think when you look at that, and granted, it's not the same thing, right? Like Tornado Cash is a mixer, just like Monero is a mixer, right? Like you're putting funds in, you're intentionally commingling them, you're sending them out on the opposite side, sometimes even in different currencies. So like all of those things are slightly different than what Zcash does. But to your point, right? Like I think that privacy is, you're going to have on one side, beyond even cypherpunks, just privacy is a fundamental right? Like this is something that we consider a strong right here in the US. There is something to be said about that, but I completely concur with you insofar as no institution is going to see this as a value, or if they do value privacy, they're going to do something like build on Canton, right? Where it is part of the TradFi system that they want, because they're going to make the argument that we're just keeping our transactions private, but we're big institutions, we're TradFi bros, we're not like Mexican cartels. So I think that that's going to be the difference, and that they're going to want those bespoke networks that they have control over that are more private compared to something like an open network like Zcash. So yeah, curious to see how this all plays out. I feel terrible because one of my colleagues, I'll never forget this. We were in an Uber at ETH Denver back in the very tail end of February, and he shows me his Coinbase account, and he's like, and I teased him. I'm like, bro, why are you still holding Zcash? He had it from the last run, and he had like a good sum, like, I mean, low 5 figures when it was like $30. And so when it started to run and it was at like 100 or so, I like pinged him. I'm like, dude, do you still got all that Zcash? And he's like, nah, I swapped it out for XRP, but it's great because I'm up 400% since I swapped it out back, like way back when. And now I'm just thinking like, oh man, like what a fumble. Like, you're talking, 10, 12, 15x at this point. I don't bring it up. I feel terrible.
I mean, it sounds like you still made out well. When you're talking about Canton,
yeah.
Is this pre-market? Is this trading? Is this what's trading on Hyperliquid now, pre-market, the CC token?
CC, that's it. And, no one talks about this. This is just not a thing. I've brought it up on Modern Market a couple times. No one is, oh my gosh, it's 17 cents now. Holy crap. Okay, so people should be paying attention to Canton Network. This is a really interesting, unique architecture. It's got its own language. It's got all of the big TradFi. I mean, big banks are in this thing. We run several different nodes at Global Stake. But Canton, I think, is just so outside of the zone of interest for the typical CT player because it is a TradFi network. But it's interesting to see that's at 17 cents pre-market, because when we started running nodes on this thing, it was probably in the vicinity of 4 cents, and people were only doing OTC deals. And then people were like, we're not accepting anything less than 7 cents. Then it became 9 cents. The last time I even heard what the OTC market was doing, it was 11 cents. So I know they're getting close to TGE. We are actually a node as a service provider. So like at Global Stake, we actually can run nodes on behalf of other institutions that just don't do anything in the infra business. So we run multiple nodes for this. And it's something that TradFi is really, really into. And this privacy is built into the network because, like I said, if you were executing large block trades or moving substantial sums of money around between banks, you don't necessarily want other competitors to know about that. And so the privacy is enabled between the individual nodes that are passing the funds back and forth. So even the rest of the network can't see into it, which is a unique and interesting take for what we normally think about blockchain. But yeah, it's a TradFi darling. And I mean, big banks and institutions are all using this thing and building on it. So curious to see. And they've even said, we don't care about TVL. All we care about is velocity of assets. Like they just want tokenization of assets to come on there, stable coins, you name it. And they just want to see money moving on the network. And that's really their bread and butter. And it's been interesting working with the team and the foundation. So really cool stuff that they're building.
Interesting. All right. So what is it? I'm reading. This is the first time I saw something about this yesterday, only because someone said somebody wicked the price of CC token up and like hammered out a bunch of shorts. I'm seeing here, I'm looking like tokenomics. It says no pre-mine, no VC allocations. Every token in circulation has been earned by delivering utility. What does that mean?
So the way that the system works, right? Like you earn the token, the CC token, by running nodes on the network, by engaging. Like the utility of the token is you need it to actually do transactions. I think part of it is burned. I'd have to double check. I might be misspeaking here. But effectively this is, and then there are what are called featured apps. And these apps are, think of them just like as a regular dApp. Like one of them, a very famous app that's kind of sort of at the hub of many of these things, is called Cantera. And this is a payments facilitator. So if you are deploying some other kind of app on top of Canton, you would use that Cantera, or most of them are, and that would facilitate the trade through the CC coin, the token. So like any kind of payments are made, are made with the CC token. So if you owe somebody for a service, for instance, that maybe you're running through another dApp, you would pay them through Cantera. So this is how money is getting shuffled around the network, but it's needed as well for paying for the transactions, the fees, and then the featured apps themselves get a cut of those rewards that are being generated, because as volume flows through the app, then it effectively captures some of that revenue share. So that's probably the best I can explain it. I'm not too in the weeds because this is more, I just deal with more like talking to the guys for running the nodes. My colleague Jordan, who's on the institutional side, he's former Coinbase institution. He's the one that had the Zcash. he would know a lot more about just like how the featured apps work and stuff, because he's the one who's interfacing with those teams that are actually like building the dApps that are on the network. Whereas I'm more on the, even though I'm not technical, I'm the one that's dealing with just like the folks like Micah, right? Like the devs that are building the apps and so on and so forth. And I just take that back to the team, and then we look at it. And so we run multiple featured apps on our nodes, for instance, because as a validator, you have the option of running some of these apps. It's totally up to you. But then there's a rev share split between the operator and the actual featured dApp builder. So a lot of the token utility is built around making payments, shuffling the transactions, getting everything through the CC token. So it's sort of like the central entry point into the ecosystem.
Okay, so I'm doing some basic math here. 34.7 billion tokens circulating, 100 billion total maximum supply here. So it's going to be a fixed supply asset. Looking at the current price at 17 cents, that puts us at a $5.9 billion market cap circulating with a fully diluted of 17 billion. So 5.9 billion on this puts it in the range of top 25 circulating tokens. So this is a pretty big token that I haven't really seen anybody talk about. It's right behind Monero. I remember when there was talk about Zcash not flipping Monero, and now it's worth almost 50% more. So this one interests me. I need to dig into it a little bit deeper. I really appreciate the deep dive you did. I think that the fact that institutions are adopting this and using it, and there's use cases for privacy outside of like not pay taxes and like individual sovereignty is kind of interesting in my point of view. I know that like a lot of people are like screaming like moral high ground, like, oh, all these individuals need privacy, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think that's like a sound investment thesis for me, because I think that the world is run by institutions and governments right now, and I think that pushes money more so than the retail investor, and we've kind of seen that over this cycle with the DATs and the ETFs. So this one's I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna look into it a little bit deeper, but maybe there is opportunity on this pre-market here on Hyperliquid. So could be jumping into this play. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And if anybody's interested and wants to interested in running a node, because that's the easiest way to actually earn the tokens, because as I said, no pre-mine, no VC allocations. The way you get the token is just running the node. And like I said, we're a node as a service provider, global stake. So happy to help anybody out who's maybe interested in running a node.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about that too. After the show. Awesome. Okay, so moving on. That was like a very, very deep dive into privacy. That was awesome. Let's see here. We've got a lot of other announcements. We got Monad announcing their launch date, November 24th. We had Mega ETH. They're announcing their allocations. That came out this morning. I didn't allocate. I wasn't able to. I don't think anyone on the show was. Phunky, Micah, any allocation on Mega ETH here today?
No. Fellow American.
My
fellow Americans.
Yeah, institutional investor. I'm going to need to win the lotto first.
Yeah, I am not there either. I think I would have done pretty well in terms of my allocation based on social wallets, et cetera, owning a Fluffle. A lot of money is going to be coming back into the ecosystem, though, from the unlocked money. Let me see here. I'm going to see if they have any posts over the last couple minutes. Yeah, it looks like they made an announcement 43 minutes ago of their selection, and we have a timeline here. So this is what I was curious about. So cancel and withdrawal is going to run from now until the 19th. So anyone who didn't get allocation or doesn't want to receive allocation, they can withdraw starting as soon as today. So this is interesting. And then maybe there's additional allocation for people who did put in money and don't want the full allocation. We'll have to see what happens here. I'm curious when we're going to see mainnet. Like, I haven't been listening to the modern market as much over the last 2 weeks, Funky. I don't know if Bread's been on there, or have you had any hints on like when we could see a mainnet on Mega ETH?
He actually missed yesterday's show, because of dealing with all this. I thought that they had already publicly said that mainnet would be January, but then I saw a crazy thing with Chris, Cap from Coffee with Captain, talking about like how he'll get like a rabbit tattoo on his ass if it happens before January, and something about December or so. But I could have sworn Bread either publicly disclosed that they were targeting January, or they said it on the timeline. I could be misremembering, of course, right? I mean, but I want to say it was something somewhere where it said January.
Estimated TGE could be January 26th. Interesting. All right, so a couple months away, we are going to have Monad come out beforehand. That's going to be November 24th. You have any stake in Monad, Micah, Funky? I think I got some of these tokens.
I connected 8 wallets and none of them had any tokens. I don't know what they were looking for, but it wasn't me.
The only ones I got were because of my Monad second wave card, the mutuals, because speaking of Coffee Captain, Steve, he basically nominated me. So I got one of the second wave cards, which obviously wasn't as valuable as like an OG kind of card. And then that and my Mega ETH Fluffle were the two that yielded anything. I don't remember the exact total, somewhere around 45,000 tokens, nothing crazy.
So it sounds like we're similar. I got 42, and I think I did basically the same thing. Node referred me on that second wave, and then I do have a Fluffle as well. I don't see many people like bullish on Monad coming out of the gates. I feel like a lot of people are just like looking at allocations and they're saying, "Oh, we get to dump this, free money, et cetera, et cetera." I love new chains though. Like, one of my favorite things to do is play around on new chains. Look for meme coins, look at early NFT collections, look at which dApps are promising, get volume on early dexes in case, they have a token drop on that chain. I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are, Funky and Micah. Mike, I know you're somebody who's pretty like busy on chain. Like, how do you play new launches of chains like this? We've had, Blast in the past, and we've had a couple other different ones, but we're going to have a couple big L1s, L2s coming out with Monad. We're going to have Mega ETH. We're going to have FOGO coming out as well. How do you normally play these new chains, or like, what are you looking for? Like, are you like really getting like deep on launch, or how do you play it? I'll throw to you, Micah.
I mean, again, I'm not going to buy either one of these tokens, like a Mega ETH, Monad. I will always get onto a chain because I think like the biggest like paybacks I've ever gotten have been when I do something where there's not a clear token. I think it happened with Hyperliquid where if you did one test transaction or you just did one transaction, you were on the list. So I agree with you. Is like, I'm going to go on and I'm going to check out some apps. I was on the Monad testnet. I think it's probably still available, but like, yeah, there were some cool things on there to check out. I'm worried about in the current market conditions with what people have in terms of liquidity, that I'm probably not going to go super heavy into either one in terms of investments at the beginning. We've seen Barachain kind of die after it started off. I think everyone has seen enough of these cases where if you're the first one to pile in, it's really hard to get back out. So I think I'm not going to be a hero on either one of these, but I'll probably check out the applications. First NFT collections. I get burned by NFTs so often, but I want the day where they come back and we get to, compare traits and have the reveal. Like, I'm always down for that. So I agree that I'll do that. I did that on a number of like Sui and a couple other chains where I just try to mint the first collections. But other than that, I'm not investing heavily into any of them. I did join FOGO. There was a Bodago specific, I want to say on Let's Rally. little Bodago specific FOGO info fi thing going on. So I'm definitely I'm gonna farm that. But yeah, to me it's a moment where I'm gonna see what other people do before I'm not gonna be the first one through the gate, get slaughtered by putting all my money onto a chain that hasn't proven itself yet. But
No, that's absolutely fair. I'm going to ask you the same thing here in a second, Funky, but I wanted to just touch on that FOGO announcement. If you hold a Bodalgo, go into the Discord. That this is pretty large alpha based on what's cooking over at FOGO. We're partnering with them, and we're partnering with them for this kind of social fi / testnet campaign. And people who participate in it are going to be very happy, I think, for participating. So head in the Bodalgo's Discord, take a look at that campaign. You should see it in our minor announcement channel. So to check that out. Touching back though on day one of chains, like are you somebody who plays around on chains day one, Funky? Like what are you looking for if you do? If not, why not?
Yeah, you spoke to my teacher heart, right? Because I'm a button masher at the end of the day. When I was a high school teacher for many years, people would come to me like a week later, like, how did you already learn this whole new LMS, like a learning management system? Like, I don't know. I just like hit all the buttons. I try and figure out things and I try and break it basically. So I'm a big fan of that. So I'm sure, like, I'm curious to see its speed. I'm curious to see, what that actually looks like when it comes to, their claims. I have some sort of exposure that early on I was given an opportunity to get into an NFT that was doing a very limited run. That was going to be like the first collection on Monad called Purple Friends. And so I bought two, like one to rock, one to stock, kind of in case this thing goes up. And, they were like $500 or something. So I just thought like, hey, if this thing 10Xs, then I can sell it. Like, great. As far as hanging on to the token with my small allocation, no, I mean, I'll probably dump most of it, but keep some just for gas and whatever to your point, just go and play around on the chain, right? Like I am curious. I can't not check it out. Mega ETH, I feel like it's already given us a little bit of a taste because of what testnet's been like. If you played the little, hopping game with the fluffle and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm just curious to see what it actually looks like and how responsive it is. And, maybe there's going to be some good DeFi opportunities because again, part of just the game right now is just farming stables. And if it's something where incentives are good, even if it's only for a couple of weeks, I might, bring some stables over to the network and just try and farm it. Even if it's just to stack more cash, but I guess we'll see when it launches.
Yeah, I love that. I'm definitely a button masher. I do the same thing. Try to learn by figuring it out. You have mentioned stables and DeFi a few times on the show. One thing that kind of caught my eye and more people I think need to be aware of is the stream DeFi issues we saw with that hack earlier in the week where they basically had, it was, I'm talking about two different things. We had a stream issue where stream lost a lot of money and then they had to like kind of pull out of their liquidity. And we also had the balancer hack essentially, which caused Barachain to go completely down to prevent issues. But people on balancer, in balancer pools, I think got wrecked as well. I was in some balancer pools previously, but I had pulled out in time some of the USDAI farming. But it brings up a good point that most people don't talk about with just DeFi. They think that like, hey, I'm locking up stable coins and I'm earning yield. They think of it more as like, okay, well, this is the equivalent of putting dollars into my savings account and earning whatever the bank pays essentially. But there's so much more risk in crypto. Whereas you have like risk on the actual contracts of your platform. You have risks of the stable coin you're depositing, depegging. You have risks of underlying assets that are pegging these stable coins, like falling or contract risk there. So you open yourself up to a number of different risk vectors, and that's kind of how you're getting this yield. I would love to hear your like methodology on like vetting where you're putting your stable coins, Funky, and like kind of how you're managing that risk when you're entering in kind of some of these pools.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this is predominantly why I keep most on ETH. Like, say what you will about, people like hate on ETH all the time, but it is the most battle tested. It is, I will willingly pay a little bit more gas, even if I got to pay a couple bucks to like go into a smart contract. I do a lot on Pendle, but I like to keep things on ETH mainnet for that reason. Like, even though like with my Athena, for instance, I have staked USDE, I also try and spread out stable coins into different kind of buckets. So for me, I like to kind of have, again, most of it's USDC, right? Admittedly, like I'm just comfortable with that. It's something that as a Westerner, right? Like it seems like it's always been USDC versus USDT for like the rest of the global South and Asia. So most of what I hold is USDC, but I typically will just, tried and true places like Aave, for instance. Yes, you're probably not going to earn the biggest yield, but it's still, you just know it's battle tested. It's been around for many years. It's safe. And then again, I just like the security guarantees that you get with ETH versus even an L2. We have a centralized sequencer and so on and so forth. To your point about the USD AI, which I know you were super early to that trade and very, very smart in getting into that balancer pool. The day I read about the balancer exploit, even though it was V2 and not V3, which is the newer one, even though that was the case, I still pulled it from that balancer pool on Plasma. And what I did was I went over, and if you haven't checked this out yet, or any of the viewers or listeners, although I'm about to dilute myself, if you still want to use the USD AI on Plasma, Pendle, the LP pool pays like 23%, and you're still getting, because if you're an LP, you get some of the points exposure. So I'm still building the Allo points for that little stack of stables and getting, earning extra USD AI over the long run. So that's a good option if you wanted to get out. And I think Pendo is becoming a really trusted name when it comes to DeFi, just in terms of their platform and the way they kind of aggregate across multiple markets, multiple chains. Again, I don't typically keep a whole lot outside of Ethereum, like mainnet. The other place that I'm doing a lot with stables, of course, is Hyper EVM, just because, I think there are a lot of people who are banking on the fact that some of these airdrops, whether it's Project X or others, liminal, they're going to be lucrative. But then more importantly, I think people are also starting to wonder, are we going to get a potential season 3, hyper airdrop? Will some of that kind of come over to the Hyper EVM users? That remains to be seen. I'm just speculating, but that's what a lot of people think. So definitely doing some stable farming over there as well.
Yeah, stable farming, definitely something that you can do in these bear markets where there's a lot of chop, a lot of volatility, and you're kind of keeping your dry powder on the sidelines. And I think a lot of people can relate, hey, we need to find more outsized returns for smaller capital investments. That's something I wanted to talk about today as part of today's show. And I think, Micah, you're somebody who does a lot of farming on these lower cap investments, lower risk investments that could have potential outsized returns. You talked about Hyperliquid doing a test transaction there. What else have you had your eye on in terms of these farming opportunities, and what have you been playing with?
Yeah, so first off, I have 2 young kids, so diapers are expensive, and the ability to make large, it's gonna be hard to tell my wife that I lost $10,000 on XYZ thing. So I am kind of in a state where I'm trying to preserve capital. And when I think about the things that have actually made me a lot of money, it's been, being early to NBA Top Shot and spending $200, and then everyone getting in. And I think at the top of my portfolio was $110,000. So I think that if you go to where there's excitement right now, kind of the thing I said at the beginning with Zcash, when you look at that chart and you just run from item to item once somebody brings it up on a show, you're going to have a rough time, right? You're going to be buying into everything at the top. You're going to be buying into everything. So for me, it's if I imagine that just the larger market is just running from opportunity to opportunity, I just want to put myself 3 opportunities ahead and then just wait. And so for me, I think the main ones I'm in right now is a lot of these from Ray. I did do USDAI and just bought some of the yield token. So I'm just letting that money. It's going to expire. It's going to go away. And I think I'm at 11 million. And I'm just going to let that happen. So if March comes and USDAI is a thing and is great, I'm going to get some money from that. And if not, I think it's $200 or $300 to just sort of allow that to generate airdrop tokens. So I joined that. I'm getting to Ethos right now because it's just an interesting, as we've had so many worries about people just farming with 50 bots to get into an ecosystem and then to sell 50 NFTs. I think for founders right now, it's so hard to get a real community of people that are one-to-one. And so I think that maybe it's not going to be Ethos, but somebody is going to have to solve that problem of how do we make sure that when we first do a community that we're not just looking at the 50 people in the Discord that said GM, because that might be the same person 50 times. And so I've gotten a little bit into trying to do this ethos stuff and get myself at least to a score where I'm seen as like I think right now I'm seen as a Sybil. Like my score is that of like just a random bot on the internet. And so I'm at least trying to work enough to get my score up to a point where people might start to look at my wallet. Let's say a founder is saying, I want to make sure that when I start this new hot collection, that I make sure the people in my community that are getting the initial allocations are added to the presale, that all of those people have a vetted score. So they made it a little harder to farm. But I just think I'm not trying to win the leaderboard here or get to the top, but I just think that being able to have a point two, I'm a real person, and point two, this is my one wallet, and this is a guaranteed, like I'm only going to get one thing from your collection. I think they already did this with Mega ETH, didn't they? I think for really high scores, people got allocations, but I think that communities are going to start to vet things like this to try to make sure their community is strong enough that they don't end up with 100 of the exact same person that's immediately going to dump 100 NFTs onto the market when it starts. Like I think we're too fragile that that new projects that come out are going to use stuff like this to try to pre-curate to make sure that their community is filled with the maximum number of actual people. So this one to me it's not going to directly result in anything. I don't know that there's no coin in the works. There's no direct thing that I get from it. But to me, this is a free or relatively free. I think you still pay gas on doing reviews, but a relatively free way to position yourself for opportunities, right? That could be super outsized. Somebody wants to drop a super cheap NFT that's well curated. They might use something like Ethos. And then the last one, this one is kind of expensive, but it's been super strong, is I'm in football.fun, and I joined kind of after it had a big wave. But it's essentially a stock market for, like, you play fantasy sports. I think they're about to release NFL, but they started with European football. And essentially you're playing fantasy sports and there's a coin for each player, and you get rewards, you get emissions basically if your player does the best in a given week. And it's been really interesting because it's a way to sort of like get the keys to fantasy sports for a specific sport. And then as you play it more, you're getting emissions that allow you to buy more things. And the only way that somebody's going to join this ecosystem is buying the coins of the players they want. So it's just a stock market for those players, and they reward. I think there's two things. They want to do a coin. So when you're playing this, there's a chance that you are farming for their token, but it's also built on top of base. And base, I think, is the big, like, get involved in the ecosystem right now in the hopes that you're rewarded later. So all of these things, like, I'm just trying to be delta neutral. God, the other one, man, I have a lot of stuff going on here. The other one.
How are you delta neutral on buying these players? This feels like me saying I'm delta neutral on fantasy top as the price is good as zero.
No, so it's actually not. It's not that hard to remain delta neutral because there's just a lot of people in it that are only thinking one day ahead. So if you buy a player that's playing 3 days from now, in 2 days their price goes up because people are like, oh, what are the games today? And I want to watch somebody play and hope they do well. And just like you can, if you just wanted to, you could just go on there, buy somebody who plays in 3 days, wait the 3 days, and unless some huge macro issue occurs, the player goes up by 20 or 30% before their game. Just because people are like, I want to watch some soccer today. Who's playing? And they will just buy the thing. So there are ways to be pretty delta neutral on this. Or if you're good at it, obviously your players go up in price. Yeah, that's the thing, is there's just so many people that are playing it as fantasy sports. They're not playing it as an investment. It's a fun thing to have the players, and they go up or they go down in price. But like, again, the market cap is not the best there, but on top of that, the reason it's gone down is because players that played got allocation to NFL. So we're about to get an easy 2 or 3x just by having played the thing. You get like super cheap. I think all of the NFL players were 1 cent per share. So you got to buy all the NFL players at 1 cent per share. And you'll see that the top players in soccer are 20 cents.
Is that live already?
The packs were sold out yesterday. The market will start trading next Monday. So again, this is one that I think I'm actually making, especially with the market downturn. I think I'm making money on this one, but it's just a fun, like, I already play fantasy sports. Why not just have something that I don't directly lose money on when I fail? It's just cool. Then you have the shares. The next game week, if they're playing somebody weak, you make money. And then I'm on prediction markets. I'm a pretty, like, I try not to gamble. So this is my way of being like, I'm not directly gambling. But I'm also trying to be delta neutral on prediction markets. So I have myriad markets, I have poly market, and I have Kalshi, and I have money in all three of them. And if I want to make a $20 bet on a team, I will make a $400 bet on Kalshi and a $420 bet on poly market, like on opposite teams, and just try to, like, so again, this is just a budget version of like, how do we survive this in a way that I'm getting activity. Myriad market's actually cool because you can do the earn tab where you just read articles about what's going on, and then you get their points, which then can be used for predictions. So that's a completely free way. And you just have to answer questions. So you read the article, they give you 3 questions, and if you answer right, you get 4,000 points, and then those points can be used for predictions. So it's an abstract based one. It's kind of like the third wheel, obviously well behind Kalshi and poly market, but it's just, not as many people are talking about it. It's easier to get on the leaderboard. There's ideas of drops. But all of these, it's like, I don't need them to work out. I think the key is, like, none of them are heavy bags for me, so I can just sit on them and enjoy them a little bit. And when you don't have a ton of funds to throw around, like, USD, if you're thinking about 20%, that's not going to work for somebody that only has $200 to put in, right? You need returns of 400, 500%. And I think the way you do that is just get into stuff that doesn't need to pay off quickly, but could pay off. And stuff like, this totally free myriad market, or just generating stuff on poly market and Kalshi. I'm a little, like, there's so many people on poly market and Kalshi that, if I'm being honest, it's probably not going to pay off a ton, especially if you lose money gambling. But it's another one that, like, it's a hot area and it's relatively easy. If you're patient, you can, like, put in limit. You can usually put in limit sells for, man, I'm really scrounging here, but, like, you can put in a limit buy on one team for, let's say, 47 cents. And then the other team, if you also put a limit buy for like 52, generally they'll fill if you do it far enough before the event, and you'll end up even. Like, there's fees, but they're not super high. So if you're really patient, like, let's say you've almost no money, if you're really patient and you play with those limit fills and you're just careful about, if one side fills, making sure that you fill the other side, you can play Kalshi and poly market about delta neutral. And sometimes even making $1 or $2. So again, I'm just trying to remain active when I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable buying other people's bags right now. I think we're all kind of waiting around for somebody to go buy our bags. And there's not enough liquidity for people to run over to your bags and keep their bags. And so it does feel a little bit like, when you guys talk about stuff that you're in, I'm like, great, I'm not coming over there. I'm waiting for you to come over to me. And and so I think in this market, that's where I'm at, is the survival of, like, let me play these things that aren't they're not guaranteeing me money. Like, I tried OpenSea. I did the first season somewhat and just got wrecked like everybody else. And I can't do any more direct farming where they tell you, hey, come do transactions over here, and I promise we'll give you some money. Like, it's just not, that's not going to work for me. I'm not doing the MetaMask thing. I'm just going to wait till somebody either gives me money or these actions that I make heat up in some way, right? People decide they do want to do fantasy football on football.fun. I'll make money. If not, I'll just wait around here and play fantasy sports. And that's it for me right now. It's just maybe not as glamorous, not as high level, but it's like, you need these things sometimes, because if we get bored, we make dumb decisions to suddenly just try to catch the next hot thing, like Zcash at 5:30, and then we burn a whole bag. So yeah, that's my budget. This is my apocalypse survival for when I don't know where the market's going to go.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for all of that. There are a lot of opportunities there that are low cost or no cost for farming. one of those that I'm also going to add in terms of hyper EVM, Phunky mentioned it earlier, was Project X. I love doing this one, providing liquidity or just swapping. I think like the easiest way to get involved is just do swaps, and it's essentially no fee swaps on whatever you want. So like, I mean, any token trade, I'm basically taking on like Project X at this point. If I'm like trying to make a token trade, like I want to buy Rect or something on ETH, like I'll do it here because I'm just gonna like just put something in here just to like show you, like essentially you're getting like I'm almost getting value on Rect here because there's no fee on it. They use I think it's like LifeEye or something where there's just low or no fees on these swaps anyway, and then getting volume here could count towards their future token. I know they're very aligned with Hyperliquid's model of tokens, so this one is a very good DEX. It has good product market fit in that I'm using it because it makes sense for me to use it over anything else, and also potentially getting rewarded. You mentioned this one earlier, Phunky. Any other tips, tricks along the lines that we've been talking about in terms of like low capital risk farming you've been getting into? I know we talked about USDAI, Project X. Curious if you have anything else that you've been checking out.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by low capital, right? Because like Yeet is being talked about a lot, right? In terms of just as a very hot online casino. And so even if you don't have a lot of capital, like most people are already estimating that even if you know, kind of similar to Micah's play where he bought YT, if you're just generating volume, like all I've been doing, because again, I'm not someone who typically is like a big gambler. I just literally said like doing limbo at 1.01x, and it's a 98% chance to win, but you're still going to lose your capital over time. But you could, with a small amount of money, generate significant volume because you're winning 98% of the time, right? And it's still adding up, but you might be bleeding out like a few $100s, but you could still generate a significant amount of points. So that's one thing. And then of course the creator, you know, if you're just doing content creation around Yeet, that there, I think 2% of the supply is going just to people who are on the Yeet leaderboard. I was trying to do it a good bit, and I was like, I cracked the top 10 at one point, but then I thought like, is this really sending the best signal as like the head of protocol partnerships at an enterprise grade infrastructure provider? Maybe not. So I kind of backed off on doing it. But then sometimes you win big. So like just the other day, I had this crazy thing happen to me where normally you get rewards dollars as you level up, and those I will degen away, where I basically just said, okay, I'm going to do $1 a pull and I'm going to go all the way. And I did 1,000x, and I ended up hitting in $200 worth of pulls. I ended up hitting the 1,000x twice. So I ended up winning $2,000. And then I almost hit it a third time where I had like a 954x. So I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And admittedly, I just withdrew my capital because I'm like, okay, now this is like everything that I've done up to this point is effectively free money because now I just took something back from the house. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm good. And then I took those stables and just redeployed them into, now I farmed a little bit more on Solstice because I hadn't done much with Solstice on Solana. So there's another good opportunity. And check out Oxy, Oxy13. He does a great job with doing, like, if you don't have a lot of capital and you want to just kind of dabble with like a few $100 here and there, he is awesome at putting together like LP guides, where to go. He just did an analysis on like buying YT points through the thing that's affiliated with Solstice. So I just threw like $100 into it last night. Right. So this is another good chance. And he's an LP master. So you don't need necessarily a lot of capital to just, because look what happened with Plasma. Plasma is a great example. I completely faded Plasma because I thought, do I want to tie up a bunch of stables? And because of the way the allocation like worked, I thought you'd need to put in a significant sum of stable coins in order to get like barely any kind of allocation for the token, for the presale. What ended up happening, however, is that they gave a minimum allocation. So people who put in literally $10 got $9,000. So this is one of these things where you don't know what the potential upside is going to be. So even if you have a small amount of capital and you're willing to just do the due diligence and the time, and to your point earlier in the conversation, right? Like you're going to take on some smart contract risk, right? That's unavoidable in our space. but you could do it, and it could be something where it just works out really well, and you end up getting a fat, airdrop after the fact. So, definitely looking into lots of opportunities out there. And I think that we've did a good job today on the show, just kind of covering so many ways that you can be involved, whether you have a fat stack or not.
Yeah, thank you for all of that. We talked about Yeet, but Popo did a cost benefit analysis when we were doing our tournament, showing how much money you really needed to generate X amount of volume on average on Yeet using that 1.01 strategy. And you really can get like $1 million of volume, I think, with a couple grand worth of stables there. So that's interesting. If you do want to do a little bit of farming on Yeet, gambling on Yeet, go to bodogos.com/Yeet, get under our ref so that next time we have a tournament come along, you can join the pack, earn some of the rewards that we will surely get this time, because we're not going to get matched up against the future winner of the tournament 3 times in a row. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see what happens there. Yeah, bodogos.com/Yeet for that. Love the guys over there. And I think 40% is going to the community for that airdrop. Is that what I heard?
Yes,
so I see a lot
40% free.
A lot of smart people, and a lot of people who aren't like I wouldn't see in a crypto casino, are using Yeet. So very interesting. I need to get over there and start farming as well. Yeah, I mean, we've hit an hour now. I think we covered a ton of ground, lots of different avenues to get into, both if you're trading or if you are looking to do some more farming, low cost, low risk plays. I think this is a great show. I want to thank both of you for joining. I learned a lot today from both of you. I think the audience did as well. So thanks again for joining. And thanks again to all of our listeners. We do this podcast Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern time. You can catch us on all major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple. You can watch us on YouTube, see what we're talking about in real time. You can find Phunky. Phunky, what's your Twitter handle?
At the Phunky One. ThePhunky #1. And
Micah, where can they find you?
In the Batagos Discord, or on Twitter at Lucky5Micah. And please go review me on Ethos so that I'm a real human.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just sent Phunky an Ethos link as well. So review Phunky as well. Hop in the Bodogos Discord. You can review fellow community members that you've been chatting with for a while. So let's get the Bodogos reviews in, make sure everyone knows what we are, how we are, and let's build up those Ethos scores, because I think we deserve it. Thanks again for joining. Really appreciate it, you two. Have to have you back on again. But that's going to do it. Take care. Have a good one. Everyone, enjoy your Thursday.